Welcome. My name is Bill Tolson, and I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager at Recomind. I'm hanging out today with Barclay Blair, President and Founder of Via Lumina, an information governance consulting firm. Today we're going to talk about some of the challenges and solutions enterprises and large organizations are facing as they tackle the overwhelming amount of data piling up in storage. So, welcome, Barclay.
Hey, Bill. Good to see you today.
Yeah, great to see you too. All right. Well, first question. We want to talk about kind of realities here.
Yeah.
What are the technical and organizational challenges enterprises are facing as they struggle to wrap their brains around their data problems?
The biggest challenge for my clients is the organizational challenge or the cultural challenge. I mean, the reality is that at most organizations there isn't somebody who actually owns the problem of information. You know, a while back I did some research into the origin of the concept of the CIO, which goes back to very late 70s, early 80s. And one of the quotes that I found from the first issue of CIO magazine was, you know, it's unclear who owns the data, the person that creates it or the person that manages it. And I think that we have failed in many ways to answer that question, you know, 30 years hence. Many companies are stuck in sort of the modernist world when it comes to information, and when in fact we're living in a postmodernist world. So what do I mean by that? Well, I mean, I think there's this idea that information is this fixed or pure or knowable thing that you can get your arms around and maybe put in a box, and it's all neat and tidy and easy to understand and so on. But I think the reality is that, you know, information today is much more complex than that. It's very messy. You know, it's coming at us from all directions. It's really like a river, right? It's constantly flowing. We can't stop it. It's very difficult to direct the flow of a river. But we can do smart things. We can harness it. We can dam it up to you know, harness some of its power. We can divert some of it to irrigate our fields. And I think that's the metaphor that we need to move towards organizationally. But I don't think many companies are there yet.
Yeah, I agree, and obviously I agree with the many companies aren't there yet, nor are they even thinking.
Yeah.
In those terms, which I think is a great way to look at it. So let's review what are the risks of not managing data.
I think the biggest risk, the most profound risk moving forward is the risk of falling behind. The good news is a lot of the skills and a lot of the technology, obviously, that we've been building and perfecting in the trial by fire that litigation, you know, represents. All of that stuff we can bring over into the value side, and we can do some really smart things with information that you know, help us build and maintain competitive advantage. I think so. I think, you know, you know, to simply answer the question, I think it's the biggest risk of not managing information is that you will not be able to leverage that information to build and run and improve your business. And let's face it, your competitors are working on that, and if they figure it out, you're going to be in big trouble.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, and I concur on not realizing the value of it. I spoke at on a CIO conference panel a month or so ago, and part of the discussion was, gee, we spend all this money to hire these highly trained people to what really amounts to them creating a great deal of information to consume and use and all this other kind of stuff. And in most cases, you know, 70, 80, 90% of the information, we don't even know it's there, much less what's in it. So we're wasting an awful lot of money by not better governing our information.
The economics are very clear. I mean, on the cost side, you know, we're doing an awful job. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. I mean, we're wasting incredible amounts of money storing content that just has zero value, and in fact has negative value, I think, from a risk perspective. And so all of that is just we're throwing money away. And then on the opportunity side, similarly, when we have, as you say, 50, 60, 70% of our information as a whole is outdated and useless information, it makes it very, very difficult to do intelligent things with that information. And so the opportunity cost there is enormous, and strategically, I think, is something that boards and senior leaders are not going to put up with for much longer.
Great point. You've written about predictive governance, which is an interesting topic. What is it, and how does it help solve some of the problems that you've mentioned?
We need to rather move to a world where we can gain knowledge about our information. We can ask questions of our information, such as what is it, what value does it have, how long do we need to keep it, what special rules should apply to it. We want to be able to ask and answer all those questions without a human being actually having to look at the data, look at the information, and make some kind of determination. 50 years ago, the metaphor for information management was set, and we're kind of stuck in it, which is, somebody's going to take a look at a piece of paper and figure out what that piece of paper is, and they're going to put it in the right file folder, and that file folder is going to go in the right box, and that box is going to go to the right facility, and the right things are going to happen to it. And that worked fine when we had secretarial pools and administrators and file clerks, but we don't have that anymore. So we have not yet replaced that failed methodology with anything, and I think that predictive governance, the application of machine-based learning to this problem, is certainly the best hope that we have for a new metaphor, a new way of actually getting our arms around the information problem. It's a fantasy to believe that we're going to do classification and management of content manually anymore on any kind of scale. It's a fantasy, and we have to give up on that fantasy. We have to live in the real world. In the real world, we have so much stuff, so complicated that, and we have amazing technology. So let's put it to use.
Yeah, great point. I had somebody tell me not too long ago that the idea around using predictive technologies for information governance really is almost an inflection point, in that it lets you take what has been almost completely manual process and automate it in a very intelligent manner, so where you can get a lot more stuff done. And with the amount of information that we're all getting, especially digitally on a daily basis, you can't do it manually anymore. You just can't.
What I love about where we're at in history is that, this doesn't happen very often, but actually what's happening over in the legal side of the world is ahead of what's happening in the corporate world. Yeah. I think in many ways. So that, the technology and the techniques of, statistically winnowing down information in a way that's going to meet the high standards of the court, and so on. The fact that all of that's happening in that inherently antagonistic, big money, high stakes environment is a very good thing for those of us who kind of work inside the firewall, and which is, comparatively a placid meadow. It bodes very well for its application to information governance, and I think that's what predictive governance is all about.
Yeah, I think it's obviously very exciting, and it's going to do nothing but grow. Another thought that several of us have been having is how does predictive governance relate to the term everybody's using today, big data?
Big data to me is quite simply, it has two sides. One is internet scale infrastructure, so we can just handle the volume of data and get it into an environment that we can actually not only manage it but do smart things with it. So you have that kind of infrastructure side, and then you got the analytical side. So once we have a petabyte of email or 5 petabytes or whatever, in that infrastructure. What can we do with it now? What can we do that's intelligent with that email? And I think that's the crossover point for predictive governance in big data, is the analytical piece. The governance part of it is the enabler. So governance no longer, in my view, is about, well, let's make sure we've dotted all the I's and crossed the T's and make sure that we're handling the fear side of the equation. I think that governance is the enabler. It's about saying, what do we need to do to create an environment where we can maximize innovation around this data?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I'd like to thank you, Barclay, for joining us today and in our talk about information governance. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Bill. It's been a pleasure, and there's lots to talk about. So perhaps we'll be able to pick up the conversation again.
Right.